What is up, Square Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos, and today we're bringing you our first deck out of BT-09X record. Now, if you guys were with me back in BT-8, you knew how excited I was for the introduction of the Armor Digimon, or the Armor Purge mechanic, and we're just going to carry that momentum right into BT-9 because we did get a shiny new toy in Megadeth X. So we're going to go ahead and go over the new updated Armor Rush with a little bit of a tech in there that I've had success with in testing. But for the most part, the meat and potatoes of the deck is very similar to how it was back in BT-8. So starting off with our babies, or our Digitamers, we're playing 4 Demi Vmons. I like Demi Vmon over Upamon in this specific deck because we are trying to take advantage of our one of our main rookies being our Jamming Vmon, and it just triggers very well with this. There's a lot of different ways of going into your armors. You can go ahead and stack them up in raising and then promote them when you're ready to swing, or you can go ahead and just start being aggressive with your Jamming Vmons early, and then if you're able to get your Tamers out, you can go ahead and Digivolve and unsuspend in combination with your Tamers. So I like 4 Demi Vs. I think 4 eggs is enough. I pretty much play 4 eggs in all of my decks just to increase consistency. I'm not a big fan of 5 eggs. Maybe for like mid-range to late-game decks, I understand the 5th egg. But for me personally, especially in Armor Rush, I think 4 eggs is completely fine. Upamon is definitely also good for the deck, but in my opinion, I prefer the Demi Vmon. Now on to our first rookie here. We're going to go into 4 copies of Jamming Vmon. This guy he's the best rookie in the deck for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he's very aggressive, you know, with the jamming keyword, being able to check freely, not having to worry about anything in there that's not an option really. But he also allows your interactions with your armors to be to have a lot more staying power. And what I mean by that is, when you have this Vmon as your rookie on underneath an armor, after the Armor Purge mechanic kicks in, you will essentially, you know, continue to have your Jamming Vmon on the board. So if you're able to get multiple security checks out of your armor, this will trickle down, and then your second check will be with jamming. You don't have to worry about any high DP Digimon taking you out. So I really do like playing 4 Jamming Vmon. We're also going with 4 BT-8 Vmon. I wasn't a big fan of this card back in BT-8 because I didn't feel like there were as many targets. We were experimenting with V Wingblade as opposed to Megadeth, which, you know, is wrong. I was definitely wrong for trying to experiment with that. And we weren't maximizing on our Tamers and stuff like that. But now that we've crunched out our ratios properly, this is your best searcher in the deck, in my opinion. There's just a lot more targets for you to hit that are multicolor. You definitely want to try to get this guy off as early as you can. He does dig for 4, so you are putting a lot to the bottom of the deck if you don't hit. But the way the deck is constructed, there's a lot of opportunities for you to hit off of top 4 for a multicolor. It's just the way we put the deck. And these aren't bad Vmons to just spam to the board early, so you can kind of build up your presence and go and swing wide as much as you want against your opponent. In combination with BT-8 Vmon, we are also playing 4 of the starter deck Pyildramon Vmons, or starter deck 10, starter deck 9. This guy is also really good. He rarely whiffs. And by rarely, I mean like maybe he'll whiff like maybe 10% of the time. Just because he doesn't grab options and Tamers like your BT-8 Vmon does. But all of your Digimon in this deck are essentially free, and by free I mean they're attributes, so you won't really whiff off of him. Worst case scenario, you can always just go ahead and grab another Vmon to give you a follow-up play for the next turn. But he is essential in my opinion. I do like the 8 searchers. I was kind of contemplating cutting down the amount of search in the deck, but you need to mitigate your search because you don't draw a lot naturally, so you need to get to your pieces as quickly as possible. And Vmon allows you to do that. Well, both BT-8 and the starter deck Vmon allow you to do that. And then our last Vmon, we're playing 14 Vmon in total. We're playing EX1 Classic Collection Vmon. This guy's just really good. When he unsuspends, you gain a memory, and with all of the armors in your deck and your Magnamons and stuff like that, basically he makes Magnamon 2, which is a lot better than 3. And in combination with Davis Ken, you will be able to unsuspend when you go ahead and Digivolve into a Digimon with multiple colors. So he's just really good. He's a really good VMon to put in raising, and then promote him later on when you're going through your combos and your plays and stuff like that. There is some argument for starter deck 7 VMon, but I feel like that's a slightly different build. So maybe we'll revisit that in the future. But I think 2 Classic Collection VMon is the number you want to go to. So that's going to go ahead and do it for our rookies. On to our champions. We're still playing the hottest tech in the deck, in my opinion, are these 2 X VMons. He's a free Digimon, so you won't whiff off of your VMon searcher. But he's also a 2 evolution cost, which goes really well with the armor theme. Most of the armor is Digivolve for 2 on a VMon, and he also unsuspends a Digimon when he Digivolves. So you don't have to target himself. You can, of course, but if you have an armor on board that you've already swung with and you have a VMon just kind of chilling, you can go ahead, Digivolve for 2, unsuspend that armor, and just continue your aggression that way. If you want to get more legs out of your Magnamon offensively, you can swing after you've gained the DP for each armor in the drop or in the trash, and then you can go ahead if you have another VMon on board, Digivolve, unsuspend, now you have your blocker for your next turn, or for your opponent's turn rather. So I really do like this X VMon. I think 2 is a sweet spot. He kind of replaces hybrid for game, in my opinion. You're going to very easily always have a board state, especially with VMons. They're not that hard to keep on the board, especially with the armor purge mechanic. Your opponent does have to give multiple swings to clear your board because you do go pretty wide but pretty efficiently at the same time. So I prefer having the X VMon as kind of like a last-ditch effort for game as opposed to the hybrid, because we're not playing that many Tamers, but I prefer this over, the hybrid for game, because it's the same amount of memory, but it's just going to get you more benefits in combination with your other plays. So that's X VMon. Onto the armors. We are playing 4 copies of Raidramon, or Lydramon, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but I will be calling this guy Raidramon. I like him a lot. Digivolve for 2 over a VMon. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon that's level 4 or lower. Really good, just able to clear off stuff. You have to know when to push in this deck, in my opinion. You don't want to just go all crazy into security, because you want to be able to control your opponent's board at the same time, because if they can spiral, it'll snowball and it'll just kind of hit you in the face out of nowhere. So the little control aspect that Raidramon does have is very, very nice. Digivolve for 2 over VMon. Again, armor purge mechanic is very nice. 5k is a little on the weaker side, but there are ways to get around that with some DP gain from the next void that we'll see here. So I am playing 4 Raidramons. We're playing 4 Flamedramons, which is now your second best offensive tool, in my opinion. Before we got BT-09, this guy was your heavy hitter, believe it or not. He is a 2-cost evolution champion on a VMon that does swing for 8k. The DP does carry over after you purge, which is why I said it is possible to get Raidramon up to 8k as well, because if you swing your Flamedramon, purge, and then you can armor on top of your VMon that was underneath Flamedramon and on suspend, you will carry that DP over, so you'll be swinging with 2 8ks, which is nice. 8k is a nice threshold. You do get over some ultimates. A lot of the times you do want your armors to die in security, because you want to be able to dig and play more armors aggressively, but also build up your trash so you can have more armor targets in your trash for certain cards. Flamedramon definitely is one of the key pieces to the deck, in my opinion. And then we're on to Magnamon. So this guy is a monster. Basically, he Digivolves for 3 over a VMon. He is a blocker. The turn you Digivolve him, he gains an extra 2000 DP for each armor in your trash. This guy can get pretty big, and again, the DP does carry over. If you are able to Digivolve Magnamon over a VMon that's suspended, that just purged a Flamedramon, you will carry that DP over, and Magnamon does unsuspend when he Digivolves. So if you Digivolve over Classic Collection VMon, you do gain that memory. It only costs you 2 to Digivolve. It's very efficient. You're trying to cut down on your plays as much as possible here. Memory efficiency-wise, you want to be able to play things out as cheaply as possible, so you go wide with some efficiency also. So Magnamon definitely is a great card, in my opinion. He's probably my favorite of the armors, just because he's a nice in-between threshold. He's not too cheap where he's 2 to Digivolve. 3 is a sweet spot, especially if you want to choke your opponent. But having that versatility of being a blocker is really nice also with the DP gain. And then, of course, the newest boy that we got out of X Record, our last monster in the deck is Magnamon X Antibody. This guy is just disgusting. I mean, he's essentially your Mega for the deck. You're not playing really any ultimates, but he Digivolves over a Magnamon for 4, which is pretty good in my opinion. And he just does a lot. I mean, he's an 11k DP Digimon, so he's gonna hit some stuff. He does carry over any DP increases that any armors underneath him have had, whether it's Flamedramon or or Magnamon himself. And let's just take a look at him real quick so you guys know exactly what he does. On your opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, if a card with armor form in its traits or X antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution card, you may switch the target of that attack to this Digimon. So basically, he's like a shield. He's a meat shield. He's always going to have some type of armor form underneath him, and it's not once per turn. So anytime they attack, you can switch the attack target to the Magnamon, which does give Armor Rush a lot of needed defense, which is really nice for the deck also. And then all turns when this Digimon would be deleted, you may place the top card of this Digimon on top of your security stack face down to prevent the deletion. So he doesn't essentially have Armor Purge, so to speak. There's no printed keyword of Armor Purge on here. But if he were to get deleted, instead of going to the trash, you could put him on top of your stack. And then you kind of basically recovered and gave yourself an 11k security Digimon in one fell swoop. So it's just really nice to have that versatility. Armor Rush did fall flat a lot in the defensive category. So for those decks that are going to try to stall you out and pivot towards mid-range or late game, this is a nice tool to have to be able to pressure offensively, but also give you the opportunity to play defensively as well. The best part about him is that you can use him offensively, not have to worry about giving up a blocker, because his attacking skill on your opponent's turn, it's just when they attack. There's not once per turn. Any type of targets they want to swing with are going to have to deal with this Magnamon. A lot of the times when you're playing non-X antibody Magnamon, there's a lot of times where, yeah, he'll be a big, offensive DP Digimon, but you don't want to give up your blocker. So this gives you that versatility of being able to use it offensively and defensively. Definitely a key piece that the deck was missing. That's it for the monsters. Now on to the options. We do play a lot of options in this deck, but they're kind of needed in my opinion. We're playing 3 Hammer Spark. I wanted to play 4, but this deck's just really tight. There's a lot of, especially with the X antibody Magnamons now, there's just not a lot of room. So you're just kind of playing your run-of-the-mill figured out cards. 3 Hammer Spark is nice. I think 4 Clogs a little too much. Checking a Hammer Spark off security is also really, really nice. Gaining that memory and making your plays even more efficient is what you want to do with this type of deck, so you can protect your going wideness while also not giving your opponent too much memory for them to hit you back with the clapback. So we're playing 3 Hammer Spark. We're also playing 3. Yeah, we're back on the train. We're back on the Megadeth train. I tried it. I tried reinventing the wheel a little bit with V Wingblade, but Megadeth is just a lot better in my opinion, because it costs less memory to play it, and it also kind of dodges 2 swings. If your opponent attacks you and checks this in security, you get to suspend somebody else and then bounce one of the other guys that's already suspended. So it's just a way of kind of, I guess essentially they do the same thing, but this has no cost restriction, whereas V Wingblade can only hit level 6 or lower. So you're that one less energy to play it, but also having a widespread effect, especially now going into BT-09. It's basically an OTK format. Your opponent's going to build a big stack, and if you can trigger this and just kind of mitigate some damage, you're already ahead of the game. So we're playing 3 Megadeth. And then on to some spiciness here. Now, normally you would see a different red option in this slot here. We used to play 3 Fire Rockets, but with the release of EX2, these plug-in cards are really, really good. It does cost you 1 more memory, but it's a better card in my opinion because it has a better security effect. The problem with Fire Rocket is if you check it off security, all it does is KO a blocker. And a lot of the times your opponent's not even going to have a blocker on their turn most of the time. Sometimes there's the blocker on your turn. Offensive plug-in A, off of security, it's going to peel top 3 and then add a Tamer to your hand. So it's just a nice way of fetching Tamers, but also gives you that added security attack +1 for 2 memory, which is why in combination with this, like Hammer Sparks, you'll be able to play them efficiently and give your armors more security checks. Also, this doesn't have to have a red card to be in play. As long as you have a Tamer, you can play this, ignoring its color restriction. But worst case scenario, Flamedramon is a red Digimon, so you'll have a source for that. And the best thing about this is that you can give the security +1 to your VMons. The problem with Fire Rocket is you can only give the security +1 to a Digimon with armor form in its traits. This, you can give it to any Digimon. So if you want to go ahead and be aggressive with some Rookie Rush, you're not getting into your armors, you can go ahead and give your jamming VMon +1 security, crack 2 checks, nothing to worry about, and then depending on what you draw off of Demi VMon, you can go ahead and Digivolve into an armor, just keep going that way, and the security does carry over. There are a lot of times where you're going to swing with jamming VMon for 2 checks, draw into an armor, Digivolve, unsuspend with Davis Ken, swing for 2 more checks, and then if you could armor purge or whatnot, you know, there's a lot of different shenanigans with it. I really do like it, though, because it has that versatility of checking its security and hopefully adding a Tamer off of top 3. But it does dig you cards. Another new addition to the deck, we're playing Awakening of the Golden Digi... Oh, I'm sorry. Awakening of the Golden Knight. I'm thinking of Awakening of the Golden Digizord, which is what was called before it was translated. This card is essentially just here for the fact that it can cheat in Magnamon X on any armor. So basically for its play cost, this is like, to me, a better version of Armor Texture. Armor Texture was kind of like the tag out card in BT-8 that allowed you to swap into your armors while paying their cost. This is just a 3-cost option that lets you cheat in Magnamon X on any existing armor that you have. So there are, you know, pros and cons to both. Obviously, this is a much more expensive option, but it does give you a lot of versatility with your top end. And worst case scenario, if you do, you know, check Magnamon X's into the trash early off of security, you can always add one to your hand and then go ahead and just have it for when you need it. So I really do like this card. More than 2 is just way too much in my opinion. I think 2 is the sweet spot. But yeah, I think being able to cheat in your Magnamon X for 3 memory as opposed to the 4 is also really, really nice. And you can cheat it in on an armor form. It doesn't necessarily have to be Magnamon itself. So we're playing 2 of those. We're playing the 1 Ice Wall because it's at 1 and it's a good card. Like I said, Armor Rush does lack in the defensive properties. Ice Wall just gives you that stall ability if you want to build your board and go wide and not push just yet because you need that 1 more turn. Ice Wall, for a very minimal investment, does give you that option of being more defensive because it makes your opponent kind of play a little more uncomfortably if they can't gain enough memory to attack you efficiently. So we're playing the 1 Ice Wall. Onto the Tamers, we are playing 4... Davidson Ken. This card is disgusting. It is the best Tamer for this deck. Even though it's not a traditional memory Tamer, it does allow you to snowball and gain a lot of memory if you can stack multiples of these. Worst case scenario, you're always going to have at least a blue Digimon, so at worst you're going to trigger Davis. But every once in a while, when you do have that Raidramon in raising and you promote it, remember this is at start of main, so this is after raising phase. You'll get that huge memory increase off of these guys. The best part about this, though, is the bread and butter, is why we play this card, is whenever you Digivolve a multicolored Digimon, you can suspend this Tamer to unsuspend that Digimon, which is going to give you more aggression and just continuation to push, and hopefully, you know, get to your opponent's security as early as possible, and then, you know, swing at them for game. So this is like a nice, you know, very well thought out archetype specific card that I like to play. You can make the argument for 3, but because you're playing a lot of Megadeths, you want to be able to resolve Megadeth, not just checking it off security. You want to be able to hard play it. So having multiple targets in Davis Ken and Raidramon is going to give you the access to your basically your spot removal for the deck. And then the last 2 cards in the deck, we're still playing the 2 TKs. I don't really, you know, Davis is fine. I mean, you don't really have a lot of green Digimon in this deck. You're only playing the 4 Raidramon, so you're never going to really +2 off of Davis. And for the most part, he's just being used as a memory tamer. TK essentially does the same thing. He's a memory tamer, and if your opponent is going to clear your board, I think I mentioned this in my other profile, if your opponent is going to try and clear your board and not fight for security, they're going to have to attack into your blue Digimon. So by suspending the TK, you do get an extra draw off of that, which is nice defensively. Because, like I said, this deck does struggle a little bit with draw power. But that's pretty much it for the most part. Like I said, you know, this deck is really nice, in my opinion. I really do like the Armor Purge mechanic. I really do enjoy, you know, the new addition with the Magnamon X, which is, like I said, a boss of a card. There are some other cards I'm interested in experimenting with, but for right now, I'm really enjoying how this has been testing. It still has some tough matchups against big blocker decks like Black War Greymon and stuff like that, especially like Black War Greymon with all its fancy new tools that it got out of X Record. But you know, we're there. We're on the cusp of it. One of the main cards I'm experimenting with is actually another plugin. If you guys don't know, I'll just put it here for you. I'm experimenting with high speed plugin D, specifically because it gives you jamming, but it also makes you unblockable. So I'm trying to see if I can find room for at least one or two of these guys, because if you can get your Magnamons pretty big and you can swing for jamming, it's going to guarantee you a check. In combination with the red plugin will give you security +1. But the best part about it is the unblockable clause. You know, not being able to get blocked and your opponent's just kind of sitting there saying, okay, I have a blocker, how are you going to get around it? You know, this is a nice little gotcha for them. So I am trying to experiment to see if I could fit this in. The only card, though, that I'm willing to cut really is Ice Wall, and Ice Wall is just that good. So we'll see what happens. Right now I'm liking it. The only other thing you can make the argument for is swapping the XVmons for two hybrids, whether it's Lobomon or whatever, or Kumamon or whatever his name is, a little bear. They, for me, do the same thing. Hybrid for game or XVmon for game. For me, there's no difference. I just prefer having the bodies on board, especially because XVmon is searchable off of the Vmon, whereas Lobomon is not. That's pretty much it, though. I mean, you know, experiment with to your heart's content. You want to try to fit in some DNA in this deck. You want to try and fit in some recovery with Shakuamon. That's also pretty valid. But for the most part, this is what I've been testing out of BT-09. We're going to have some more gameplay in the next couple of weeks, showcasing these decks that I'm building, and I definitely have a lot of profiles that I want to get out for you for BT-09. It's a really good set. I like the support with the X antibody cards for already existing decks, so we're going to visit that as well. But let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and please hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything No Counters, No Combos. We really do appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared.